our meeting of January 9th and another from our joint workshop of January 28th. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll take these one by one. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes of January 9th? Kevin, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
And for the minutes of January 28th, can I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Thank you all, and thank you, Pat, for keeping us on track with minutes. I'm going to turn it over to Paul. Paul has circulated based on the feedback we got from the workshop and further analysis that both Paul and Jackie have been working on. He has made some modifications and he has some recommendations about going forward. So, and I think he would like to really probably start with either site plan or inclusionary, two of the bigger issues.
Yeah, let's start with inclusionary and
Okay.
site plan, then we can do the rest, and I can get the documents after that.
Okay, terrific.
So in inclusionary zoning, I got a draft back from the Alexis, or housing consultant. I'm still going through that. Town council has not reviewed that because I wanted to get everything finalized on it, but basically, there isn't really any substantive changes from when we last talked about it. Alexis had some suggestions for just kind of reworking the layout, consolidating some of the sections to make it a little more streamlined. But as far as the content really hasn't changed. There's a section that we talked about, the affordability section, and the sections that talk about the timing of projects and so forth. That could come out of the bylaw and be inserted into planning board guidelines. So I have a call with Alexis on Thursday. I want to make sure I understood which parts she thinks could come out without just wrecking the whole flow of the bylaw. So there's still a little more work on it. I think the biggest thing is, she recommended the sections that talk about, the options for fee in lieu and offsite. She suggested that those sections could be allowed by special permit. So right now, those options are in there, but it's really the way it's worded, it's really like puts it on the developer, like they could come in and say, instead of doing this, I'm gonna do the fee in lieu or this basically makes it so the planning board's in control of that. It's not, they would have to ask for that, and then that gets you into a approval review loop of, is this the right option? And the board could say, no, you gotta put the units on site. So I think I don't have an issue with that. I want to work out whether we need to put any special permit decision criteria, special stuff in there. Which is what I want to talk about with her on Thursday, and then get back to you all on that. But that was really the only major thing that came out of her review. I guess the only other thing I would say is just debriefing from the meeting the other day was the recommendation was for the units that are the 5 to 8 total, which would yield 1 unit. What we heard was, should that 1 unit really just be a workforce unit?
Or up to 120. Yeah.
Yeah, workforce, which is defined up
Yeah,
to
up to
120%.
But in what we have now, it says it would be a workforce and that 1 unit would be workforce, right? Not either or.
No,
Or-
right now it's
In what-
affordable, a
What's affordable?
non-SHI affordable unit.
Okay, and what we have now that you sent? What you sent yesterday says.
Oh, did I send the inclusion? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
I
did.
did. I'm sorry. So yes,
It
correct.
says warrant what?
Sorry, start over. I thought I thought I was holding that back because it
It
was.
wasn't yesterday's, yeah, I'm looking through it.
So
Yeah.
as those who have it, the things I highlighted in yellow were the items that Alexis brought up that were changes. And then I did I switched it to the one unit projects would be workforce,
would be workforce.
but that's something. That's how it would read if we take that recommendation, but that's to be discussed right now.
Yeah,
Would it be workforce, or was it that we could let the developer decide?
Well, that's why I said it could be up to, but
Yeah,
the practicality is
they probably always would, because
Yeah,
they're more involved money.
there'll be more money for them if they have workforce.
Well, and that sort of gets to the definition, because we've gone both ways about this. And we've had discussion about it. Is workforce 0 to 120, or is it 81 to 120?
I don't have it. I think we define it.
Okay, that's what we should think
I
about.
think that's how we defined it in the bylaw.
Okay,
yeah. I think,
that is how we defined it. Okay, so what you, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying what you have here is that the one unit, if it creates one unit, that unit shall be workforce, so it would be 80 to 120, right? My reading of the joint meeting that we had was, we won't get select board approval unless we say that.
oh, that was my question. There clearly was, on the table, some of the select board members thinking 120 is what they wanted. And so my question is, so was that an opinion? Or is that, this is what we should do if we want to have support?
Well, it's all the individual board member's opinion. They didn't take a vote.
Right.
And they obviously all weren't there, so it's just individual board member feedback opinions at this point.
Tom has a state.
Tom?
Yeah, I thought I heard at the board meeting that they wanted up to 120, but they didn't want to exclude below 80%. But yet the way that it's written, at least in the current version, Colin, I know it's still draft, it says 80 to 120. So it seems to me that would be, on that first unit, that wouldn't be very advisable to exclude people below 80.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's workable, though, if we call it workforce.
I think, Tom, I agree with you, Tom, and Pat. The emphasis that the Board of Selectmen were making was that they wanted to be up to 120, that they were both, at least two members of the board were both saying that they knew many people that don't qualify for the 80%. But I would be happy to just leave the 120, not put a lower limit on it.
Well, I guess it would-
To write it, to say, for any project creating one inclusionary housing unit, that unit shall be either affordable or workforce.
Yep.
So it'd be the developer's choice. They could make it a
Right.
non-SHI affordable up to
Right.
80, or it could be a workforce up to 120.
I think that's better. It gives them the discretion. They may all end up being workforce, but if they are, they are.
And we're talking one unit.
One unit at a time.
Yeah.
I think the larger question, Pat, that you asked of what are we supposed to do? I mean, I think we want feedback. I've always sort of taken the position of we should take that feedback and listen to it and, if it makes sense, obviously. But I also think we should, having spent months looking at this stuff, we're making just recommendations. We're not making final decisions. And there's a lot of process that's gonna go on. So, I mean, there could be many things here that get next down the road,
Right.
So, I don't think we should try to put our finger on the scale and say, is this politically gonna work or not? Because that's really the process. We should just be sort of sticking to, can we get behind the recommendation?
So if we made the recommendation, what we just said,
Yeah.
that either non-SHI affordable or workforce.
Yeah.
I think that encompasses the spirit of what several of the select board members were thinking, just to advocate for priorities. And yet at least the flexibility for the developers, and we can also fingers at some of them come before.
Okay, so then that number 3 would be changed, I guess.
7.74.3.
So you got that, Paul?
We're gonna have it as developer's
Either-
choice. Yeah.
For any project creating one unit, one IE. That unit should either be workforce or inclusion.
Do they then designate it? And does it stay that way?
The developer,
Yeah,
That would be in the deed
That
restriction.
would be in the deed restriction.
They would have to choose one or the other.
Yeah,
I mean, it's more of a symbolic vote because I can't imagine in any market a developer is gonna lock themselves into 80 when they can go to 120. It's,
yeah, they're talking rent.
yeah, it's just,
unless we created some kind of incentive. I mean, that could be that if it, at 80, the Affordable Housing Trust could create an incentive for those 1 units.
yeah, and that would separate programmatically.
Programmatically. that
You
would be
could do
separate.
some subsidies, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay,
Right, is that right, Paul? Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's just, yeah, it really leaves it open-ended that
Right.
the developer, whoever's doing it, can really just figure out who they're gonna rent to. And
so it would be it's the developer's
Okay.
choice to do either one.
right, but then they gotta lock it in, and that would go into
Yeah.
the paperwork.
so I'm gonna be really conscious of time because we got a lot to go through.
So just to indulge me for one second, whoever has it in front of you, there's the things I highlighted in yellow, if there's anything. Oh, thank you. Okay, if there's any, the things I highlighted in yellow were just the things I was gonna call everyone's attention to today, so unless there's any questions on it. On those
We
items,
said that the fee in lieu of the planning board.
The
makes
planning board.
final determination of acceptable value.
Yeah.
So I had this question before. I can understand on a home ownership one, the average assessment of equivalent units put on rental. How does that decision get made?
yeah, I don't think we have a good answer on that from anyone. On how to calculate that.
Right.
So Barnstable County, the Shared Regional Housing Services is working on that.
Yeah.
Type of information, so we can ask Alexis about that tomorrow.
And so that might be something we want to put in the planning board guidelines, because if we
Yes.
do solve it, then we put it in there, we don't have to redo the whole bylaw, so.
Right.
Uh,
I don't see, Paul, I don't see anything else unless I'm missing it, anything else in yellow under, other
just the
than
planning
that
board.
one item. And the one paragraph.
Yep.
One,
Yeah, okay.
number 3.
And then under 7743, a land donation, do we want to add that the land should be in East Hampton?
yes, that would make sense.
Yep, good catch, yeah.
Nebraska.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think, is there any chance that we'd have a development that was close by where we'd say, somebody would say, well, I'm gonna donate this land in Wellfleet.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Like it really,
Right after the next.
I think that was
okay.
it. Again, we'll have final cleanup once I
Yeah.
wrap this up and talk a
So
little
what-
bit some more.
So after you've talked with Alexis, maybe what you could do is circulate this, make the final draft circulated and maybe we could I mean, if we need to have a call to
Yeah.
to approve it, we can do that. But okay. All right, can we move on? Jackie, do you want to do the site plan stuff?
Sure.
Yeah. Prefaces that Jackie is hitting the spreadsheets really hard. There's a lot of variables. So we've been talking this through. Unless where we left off earlier today was we don't necessarily have a solution. So we gotta talk through the different variables and figure out which direction to go. Right.
Thanks. And Tom has said some helpful things to think about, so I'll talk about those as well, Tom. To make sure we're there. So Where to begin?
Which one are we talking about? Jack?
We're talking floor area ratio. The way that we presented this at the joint session. The proposal was to change our chart, first of all, to have just two bands. Lots under 15,000 square feet and lots over 15,000 square feet.
Yeah.
In doing that, we also proposed changing how much building can happen on those lots. Put that, it's already a percentage basis under site coverage, floor area ratio, and net floor area are just a clarification on language. There's no percentage base. So part of what we did in the original proposal was to reduce those two bands. In the band that was 15,000 square feet and under, we pitched a 15% coverage, which is an FAR of 0.15. And over 15,000 at 11% or 0.11. We've discussed here and at the joint session, the sawtooth effect that happens, which just to make sure everyone's clear on, is when, if you think of those two bands, the properties at the top of band A are afforded a larger development potential than the properties at the bottom of band B. So there's offset. And how do we address that? This has always been true. This is addressed in our current site coverage standards by allowing developer or an owner to choose the percentage or a capped gross floor area, the greater of. And what that seems to create, particularly in our mid-range properties. So properties between 20,000 square feet and I would kick that all the way up to 35,000 square feet are the projects that are coming through. Unsurprisingly, a lot of those projects are pushing their development to the absolute max. And that is putting their site coverage pretty high. And bringing forth those projects that the select board, the planning board, this group have been worried about as too large for the character of their neighborhoods. So I've gone through more permutations than I can keep track of and how to better address this. So some of the things that are coming up. That 15% regulation on lots under 10,000 square feet, right? So we set it under 15,000 square feet. So that's inclusive of those under 10,000 square feet, would drop their allowed coverage by 5%.
From 20 to 15.
Right. Which is not insubstantial for those very small properties. But
the max of building, you could have a lot at 10,000 square feet, which is small.
Yep.
And you could build a 2,000 square foot house there.
Yep.
With the current law.
With the current law. Current law.
Lower that to 1,500.
Potentially. So what's been tricky, so we'll just start there. What is difficult in planning on those lots is, as we say it right now, they can have 20% or 1,500 a greater of, which means that houses that are too small, or, excuse me, properties that are too small to hold a house that size are still, they're going to build to that size. If we went to a strictly percentage-based structure there without changing their percentage, that's one thing just to hold on to for a minute. We think where we're seeing the greatest concern, again, is those houses in the 20 to 30,000 square foot, those properties in the 20 to 30,000 square foot range. For context, and this is something you all asked for, is to understand how many of those lots exist. This data may not line up exactly with the data that's been referenced over time that was collected a couple of years ago. There's subdivisions, there's things that were residential that aren't, or that weren't that are. So in the data that I have from the assessor's database currently, lots in the 20 to 30,000 square foot range are 3,588 lots of just under 6,000. So they are the majority in
Yeah.
just that one band. Pardon?
Yeah, I was just looking at 8, 16,
Right.
2000, there's 60 something percent of all lots.
Great math. So we've gone through a couple of different ideas here. My first was looking at just from the original proposal, where we jumped from some lots at 15% and some lots at 11%. That 4% variation at the sawtooth moment creates a really big gap for those properties. And the least sophisticated way of saying it, it's a really
Yeah.
big gap. And so one idea is to add back in a band in the middle at 13%, so that those steps are more gradual. Once we start to do that, and then we add to the conversation, do we really want to restrict those little lots, of which there are 241 under 10,000 square feet? We start to just get back to the bands that we already have.
That's right.
And so sort of one of the last things Paul and I discussed this morning was, does it actually, are we actually think it makes sense to collapse those bands, which I liked the simplicity of, but mathematically, it's probably more complicated in terms of actually applying this in a way that feels fair. So
Where are we looking at congestion? Are we concerned about congestion on, with people that live on small lots and that have a 10,000 or 15,000 square foot lot? Or are you?
I think congestion or density is an interesting question, because even if we really studied that and said yes, we would still be talking about modest size homes in terms of the national average of single family homes and the county average of single family homes.
What is the county average? That's a good question. I'm sure
I believe it's, I want to say 22, it might be 24
Okay. About that.
at this point.
I mean, one of the things that I think in this, that we need to figure out the percentage, but I think the larger thing that we're doing is the lesser of, with the absolute max cap,
Right.
is to me is the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's really, I think we have to figure out the fairness of the banding, but the absolute max cap really is really the thing that gets us to, because
I agree.
folks will push to
I
be
agree.
at that max
I
cap.
agree.
And so what we did with the last math is we didn't realize how much people could go beyond the max. And then we had the conflicts.
Right.
So
Right.
that to me is the bigger thing, when we banded at no greater
Oh,
than
right.
in absolute numbers.
Mhm.
That to me is more substantive. And I do think the math within these bands has to be figured out percentage wise,
Right.
but I think that principle is the bigger thing.
And that's, so, and I can find the bylaw and put it up on the screen if that's helpful. But under our 7.4.3 site coverage standards as they exist today, a change in language, it would be in addition to changing to net livable area and our terminology changes, but moving away from the greater of in favor of the lesser of. Right?
Just saying we're gonna get rid of the max building
Yes,
GFA except for the top band.
correct.
Or just say there's one max. The max is 4,800, no matter what rear lot is.
Yes.
So that can just be a separate standalone bullet that under no circumstance is gonna house be divided in 4,800 square feet. And then you can have the table and saying that our what's the acronym, not the GFA, but the FAR is 11. And then we keep bonuses as we get small. Instead of saying we're reducing as we get bigger, we should say we have a town-wide FAR of, let's say, 10. And then you start adding a point a bonus point for smaller lots, because then you're showing that you're doing something to help out the more affordable lots.
Mhm.
But are you suggesting we wouldn't have maximums?
We have one maximum.
Well, but that's only for the biggest lot.
Well, but
Well, but
your
it's a-
FAR is your max,
But your fire is
so your percentage is your maximum.
Does that equate to the maximums that we've put in there?
Tom.
Tom?
So Jackie may be getting ready to talk about this as well, but there's another way to use that maximum. If we're adding a maximum, it's where you want to put the non-optimal if you don't want to put a very very nonlinear FAR formula in place. If you're going to have steps, you can maximize the lower floor and say that when the as Jackie said, the group A, the lower grouping below 15,000, gets to the point where it's at the minimum of the next up grouping, you can level it at that point. I mean, that is one
You
option,
can,
and it's a simple option.
we'll talk about that some more, Tom, dealing with that sawtooth. I think, so I know this is absolutely clear as mud right now. I think it's just that when we've looked at it and we've gotten deep into rearranging the bands, rearranging the percentages, are we actually achieving what we set out to achieve? Or are we moving in a direction we didn't intend?
Well, if we're going to have an absolute maximum, it seems to me that there should be a different maximum for each band,
Yes.
not just one overall maximum, because that's what we're trying to achieve.
But there is a different maximum for every band, because
Right.
each band is, well, yeah, but I'm saying, I'm saying, we don't need to have the choice. The maximum is your SFA, is your
FAR.
FAR, thank you, let me write that down. The maximum is your FAR. I don't understand why we'd have, for instance, I would say, that we start at 10%, 50,000 feet or above is 10%, never exceed 4,800. So that's the cap for the entire town. And then once you go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you're adding 1 percentage point to every break point.
Which is
That's your max. And then but then these houses that are in the 20 to 30,
Mhm.
And you were saying they're at 11%, they'd be back to 13%. I'm saying we keep this half
I'm
the table.
frustrated. I
And
don't
you get
have
rid of
my
that.
zoning in front of me.
Yeah, let me put that chart up
Can
there.
we put the chart up yet? Because I really need to visually see these numbers.
Existing chart.
Mhm.
Bylaw.
Are you all logged in now?
No, but I got that on page.
Okay, great. Okay, Paul, we'll get that up there. I'm sorry. I know that this is not fully formed yet. Oh,
No, it's all right.
radically fast.
No, can you do the other chart?
No, so this is where we are now. Right, but what's happening with that clause, the greater of? Is that's where we're getting those houses that are really big for their lots, because they're not sticking.
Say that again, Jake, I just couldn't follow what you said.
That's okay. Maybe Paul needs to.
You got it.
Yeah, I just couldn't process fast enough.
So. People are always going to the biggest number.
Yeah.
Because they have the choice. Right, what Martin is talking about is take away caps for just a minute, if you were operating only on the FAR for your property. For example, let me go to one here. On a 20,000 square foot lot, which right now gives you a 13% option. Think about that.
That's 2,600.
It's 2,600 square feet
For 3,000 cap, so
or a
that
3,000 cap. So of course they're gonna go
with
to the cap.
A 3,000 square foot house on a 20,000 acre lot, pretty big.
It's pretty big.
Right. It is. It's only 400 square feet bigger than what the percentage would give you with the current percentages. But it's big. I mean, that's a whole nice sized room, larger. And so if you took away that max building GFA and we moved to that your FAR, it's just the percentage base, that's all you get. You don't get above that, and we're gonna come back to sawtoothing. And then there was a townwide cap at 48 seems to be the comfortable number. Then houses would be built directly proportional to the lot size. Would be your max.
Well, and you're giving an incentive, not an incentive, but you're giving a break for the smaller lots. The only issue I have now is that we have the 15 to 20, we have this giant step where, you know, to me, I like linearity, so I would go like 16, 15, 14, you know. Whatever the breaks, yeah, start at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is only, how many lots under 10,000? There's only 221 lots.
Right,
Right
so
now,
it's not a
Potential that a
town.
pre-existing house on a 3,000 square foot lot would build a 1,500 square foot house. So,
Subject to setbacks. Yes.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so I wanna check in on how
So there's
we are
two,
right there.
so, you know. What I'm hearing is the simplification, we can talk about how many grades we have, but the simplification would be to have FAR as a percentage in each category, which is what you get.
Yeah.
Not the greater of this or that, and then with an absolute 4,800 cap.
Yes.
And then, so if that's one thing that we would be in agreement with, then the issue is then what is the graduation of those percentages? And that gets to the sawtooth and.
two things. One would be what are the breakpoints? And I would look at the lot sizes, I'd say we're leaving where they are.
Yeah, and I,
Just the lots, just the.
because we did a lot of work last time on looking at those lot sizes and breakpoints, and we were calculating. I mean, what we were doing last time, and Jim was doing this, is calculating when we're making breakpoints, so the sawtooth would affect the fewest amount of people. I mean, we were trying to, there's always this issue of where you draw the line because it doesn't get even. But those were at least originally the breakpoints that felt more equitable.
So if we kept the breakpoints or the bands,
The way they.
sizes, the lot sizes, the way they are.
So under 10, under 15, under 20, under 32, under 43.
No,
This is what-
those were just examples of what would happen at different, these are the bands.
This is the actual zone.
Those
Those
are
were-
that was
this
just
is the
different
current zone.
scenarios.
Those are like scenarios to see the maps.
Just examples going from.
Oh,
But
That's
this,
like-
this is the
Yeah.
actual zone of that current zone.
Right. So what I'm hearing is hang on to the lot sizes in those bands. They were done very intentionally
Yeah.
and after a lot of research. We'll talk about the percentages. Nothing is ever going to feel exactly silver bullet perfect, but
Right, but having
But
four
maybe there's
small
some
sawtooths
shift there.
instead of one big one.
Right.
Is more appealing.
And
I
then,
think so.
and then the 40 should be 40 and above, because we're getting rid of the 50.
Right, we're
We're gonna condense that band. Okay,
so we'll lose one.
we'll lose one band.
Simplify the chart by one.
And so will this chart, maximum site coverage is based on FAR?
Yes.
That's not what it says now.
No, this is the
No.
old one,
It'll be max FAR,
max FER.
That's one, totally.
but we can keep the bands
Got it. I get
minus the
that.
50 in.
I like those bands.
Okay,
Hmm.
so
You'll notice in this list, though, the max GFA is less than what the site coverage would give you on the top end of each of those bands, right? So again, another way, if we were worried about the sawtooth effect, you could do something a little bit different here and say the lesser of and still have a max. I don't know how evil the sawtooth is. That's part of the question, but that's another way to level it out.
yeah. So I want to get there. I want to talk about percentages first, if that's okay, or next, I should say.
Okay,
At these bands, and I hear Martin suggesting that at least the 20% feels high,
mm-hmm,
and that maybe the 15% feels high, or you just don't like it because it's nonlinear.
I think the 15% you proposed that originally, that's what we brought to the Board of Selectmen was the 15% max. I said two things. One, I said that we should sort of set the FAR at whatever the lowest one is. Say that's what the FAR is, 11, and then we're giving them some sort of an incentive with one point. So 11, 12, 13, and then you go 14, 15 instead of 15, 20, or is the houses that we're talking about under 10,000 is only 540 of them.
Right.
And
The 10,000 to 20,000.
let's say something. So let's say some of
It's
them.
only 540 houses, and the under 10,000 range is 241 houses. Or lots, I should say.
Would you say that the second to the last sentence you said again?
Yes, the lots under 10,000 square feet
About 240.
are about 240 of them.
From 10 to
From
20.
10 is 541 approximately.
That's the number of this.
Correct.
Yeah, we used a number, I remember it's 539 when we talked about when we were presenting last time.
Right.
But the impact, what we thought the impact would be.
So
So give me, can we do quick math just to say,
absolutely.
if let's hypothetically take Martin's thing, you go 11 and you do the linear, you go 15, 14. I just want to get a sense of
Where that would
where
shift.
that lands.
Mhm. I'll give you the kind of tops and bottoms and, Martin, if you want, well, so let's go to band, I think of it as band A, 0 to 99. So at a 15% FAR, the biggest house you're gonna get in on those size lots is gonna be 1,500 square feet.
Which is what we have now.
Yep. Yeah. And the 10,
And at 10, it's, if we dropped it to
14.
14. Well, I'm gonna go up to the. So at the high end of band B, dropped to 14% would be 2,800 square feet.
Which is bigger.
But at the low end, but at the low end, if you go from 999, you get 1,500 square feet. And if you add one more foot, so now you're at 10,000.
Yeah.
Now you're at 1,400 square feet. So the sawtooth is 100 square feet in this case.
Yeah.
And the sawtooth we get a little bit bigger if we keep it at 1%. So the jump from, from C to D, from 20,000 to 30,000, at 20,000, at 13,000, at 13% of 20,000 is 2,600 square feet.
Yeah.
And then 12% of 30,000 is 2,400 square feet. So now the sawtooth gets bigger as you get, so the sawtooth is 100 feet, 150, then 200. So the sawtooth is just 100 feet at a time versus
Okay.
one big four.
One big,
But
Yeah.
15% is 2,800 at that band.
yeah.
But you could go right now, you can go to 3,000.
At 15%.
Right. So this would be locking in at 20.
It's, but to Martin's point, it's, you're digging people 200 square feet.
Yeah. This is very confusing to me, having the one or the other. It's tough. for me to
Yeah,
figure
it's-
out. And, so for me, I think simplification makes this is nice, but
So if we continue, and then that next band, which is
30,000.
our biggest, which is 60% of our lots,
So,
at 13%,
so the smallest house would be 3,600 and the biggest house would be 48.
at the 30,000 square foot would be,
Yeah, if you did 40,000 times 12.
If you do six, well, yeah, 39,999 gets you the 4,800, so you can't max out there. So it's like you don't need the 40,000 category because it's still 4,800.
that's a big house on 60% of our
That
lots.
is, I mean, that's the thing I'm uncomfortable with is at the high end of the bands,
Yeah,
you're increasing. You're going, say, the 10 to 19,999, you're adding on 800 square feet and that follows throughout there to the point where you choke off the not just 50,000, but you choke off the 40,000 because you're already at 4,800 at 39,999. I'm not comfortable with that at the larger ends of those bands.
Yeah. Which is why I think we were kind of initially going for the maximum number also in there, not just the percentage.
But exists, currently, that's the way it is, right, Kevin?
Well, you're
But
saying,
we're not making the houses bigger.
39,999 at 12% right now is 4,800 square feet.
Yeah, so that's what you're allowing now.
right.
Yeah, so we are removing, at the smaller end of the band, people had they had a cheat code. If you're at the small end of the band, you would then jump to the greater off list. And now you're.
Yeah, and the logic behind that 20% though, was way back when we were debating this, was that when you have a really small house, you're probably, dealing with a family that is of lesser means. And if they have a second child, what do you do? This is a small house. They should have a little more flexibility on that to add a small bedroom for the second child type of thing and cut them some slack where we took away that advantage as the lot sizes get bigger.
I can also look at it, that when I look at where these small lots are, they're in cottage communities really close to the shore. So we're already in premium real estate territory and you're allowing them to build. We're allowing the people that are in these cottage communities near the shore to be the most dense. They're already dense, so
Well, and so, like, for example, in the 30 to 39 category right now, it's those lots that are between 30 and 32.5 that are taking advantage of the max building GFA over their site coverage. And then that's gonna, you could walk that back to each, the bottom of the 20 is the one that jumps up to 3,000. Where that is beyond their max site coverage in a percentage base.
So
it doesn't change the top end.
So can we go back to the equity issue though? I mean, we're sensitive to the folks that have really small lots, and I remember, Kevin, thank you. We debated this forever about what if someone's on a small lot, they have another kid, they need a bathroom, they need so we bias to allow some move there. But I'm just wondering, like at that big, at that middle range where it's 60% of the lots, it feels really high to have 4,800, and I'm wondering whether maybe we want to have simplicity. Maybe it's not just so linear that you go 11, 12, 13, 14, but maybe we make some, maybe again, maybe it's 11.
Can I make a quick correction?
Go ahead.
Our greatest number of lots are between 20 and 30.
Yes.
At that 13%.
Yep.
Which maxes out at 3,900 square feet.
3,900, not
Correct.
4,800.
Correct. 48 hits the max on the next level, which is just over 800 houses. But where we have over 3,500 lots are 20 to 29.
Yeah.
999, which max out at 3,900 at 13%.
And so where I was going with this is whether the really smaller lots, again, as we try to jury rig this last time, they get a little extra leeway, but do we go back to something flatter, like 11%, when you go from 20 and above?
I have another thought here too.
that's what we did originally with Jackie, and that created the large sawtooths. But now you have a sawtooth that's like 800 square feet.
Right.
And then you have more gamesmanship that somebody who's, Bob Sheldon's selling the lots that are, this one's 1999. You're gonna be able to build a bigger house on this lot versus that slightly bigger lot on the other side of town.
Another
Kevin,
thought though too here is when we met with the planning board back in the library a few months ago. And the suggestion that we were trying to follow with these changes was, let's just lower the standard all across the board kind of thing. If you take a look at what our maximums are with this idea of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you're still at the same. You've done nothing about reducing it.
We've done nothing about reducing it.
At the top end of those bands.
At the top end of those.
Where
bands,
it reduces it is at the bottom end of those bands. which are currently being built bigger than their proportional allowance, their current proportional.
That's why you're using the FAR. The FAR is proportional to your lot size. We're looking at these lots. You know, we broke this down into bands from a management point of view. But the lots in town aren't broken down into bands. The lots are all random sizes.
And the FAR makes using FAR as the maximum as opposed to a maximum square footage keeps it proportional to the lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's equitable that, you know, if Kevin and I live next to each other and Kevin's lot's 100 square feet bigger than mine and his house is 15 square feet bigger than mine, then I don't have an issue with that. But the other situation is that my lot could be smaller and I can build a bigger house than that.
Right.
That to me,
Keeping it in these multi-layer bands and reducing the difference to 1% is gonna reduce
Sawtooth is saying in the.
that, you know, it's tight, right, so it doesn't
So it's
necessarily
kind of
feel like as big of an inequity.
So maybe but then that goes back to, we can keep a graduated band, but are the numbers in the bands too high? That's the question.
That's one question. I think the other is to address the sawtooth, what Tom is proposing. Tom, jump in if I misrepresent, please. Would be that where this sawtooth gave you at the lower end of a band, the benefit of your neighbor's bigger house, or slightly smaller lots, bigger house. The flip side of doing that is saying that we're going to hold, if you have a 20,000 square foot lot, and that only gets you 2,600 square feet, then we're gonna cap the band below it at 2,600 square feet. That would be where a significant reduction would come at the top of the band.
Say that again, just.
Sure.
Mm,
Yeah, so I wanna do this sort of in the mid-range.
We need a whiteboard.
Want me to stand up and say it?
Whiteboard would be amazing. Am
I'll point to it.
I right on the screen? I need a smart board.
So this guy here, 13%, Tom, that 30,000 square feet is 3,900 square feet. So they can't build that. What we're saying that, go back is now,
Anyway,
so
going backwards.
at 14. So you're saying the cap here, I understood what you said now.
Okay, so
And I like it.
let me explain it this way. So at 29,999 and 13%, that's a 3,900 square foot house, right?
So that's 2,600. So then you make
Nope,
this
hold
20.
on, I'm going the other way.
Oh, yeah, but I'm
At 30, I'll do 30 at 12% for us.
36.
Yes, it is. Okay, so we have 1 square footage difference in our lot size. But I, as the owner of a bigger lot, 300 square feet fewer than Martin does. What Tom has proposed is not to limit my potential on my 36.
That the max here
Or
should
39.
not be greater than the minimum here.
Right.
Exactly.
So it'd be-
You're just putting a ceiling on the prior, so you get to a
Right.
point where you max out, and ease into the next band smoothly.
Right.
So-
And with smaller graduations, it works a little bit better than with the 11 and 15 that we were looking at.
Right,
Right,
which
right.
feels like a big jump. So in this specific case, on my lot at 30,000 square feet, I'm allowed a 3,600 square foot house, which is proportional to my lot size at 12%. My neighbor next door here, who's at 29,999, could
His cap.
here be 39, we're gonna cap at 36.
36.
So the bottom of the higher band becomes the max for the lower band.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Now there is no more sawtooth.
Exactly.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Now, thank you, Tom. And also, while I think this is really effective and equitable and gets to our purpose and intent on the lots between 20 and 40, I am a little concerned about those reductions when they happen, particularly between 9.99 and 10, as they currently stand. But if you're gonna tighten those percentages, that is resolved in the sawtooth. But by tightening those percentages, you are automatically reducing the development potential on those very small lots. So I wanna be aware of that. Maybe that 2% jump 13 to 15 still makes sense. And then it's 15 to 17 rather than to 20. But if you go, directly in line and drop 15 to 14 and then drop 20 to 15, it's a pretty big drop. And that may be okay. I just don't want to ignore it.
It's part of this is I need to see numbers because it's hard for me to, sort of think about this, but I mean, I want to know how much it's dropping and what, we know it's a very small number of people and how much is it dropping?
Well, so right now, so if you dropped the 10 to 20 band, if we drop that to 14%.
Yep.
And on the small side, it's gonna be a 1,400 square foot house.
Which is only 100 square feet different.
It's different from our midway proposal, but different from current conditions. It's 600 square foot difference. Right now, that 10,000 square foot lot can build a 2,000 square foot home. So by moving 1 percentage point, while we drop the greater of, we are actually shifting them 600 square feet.
But, this is more of a policy issue because I think we started down this road because of the backlash of people complaining that we were getting buildings that were too big.
Yeah.
But the thing is that what we proposed the select board or at the meeting the other day was the 15%. So 500 feet of that drop, we've already, I don't want to say promoted, but had talked about. So it's the difference between 999 and 10,000 is only 100 feet. So if we've already gone the length of dropping the smallest band by 500 feet, if we can accept that,
Did we
it
not?
still flows.
In the last proposal.
Because we would go up to 2,000 right now on 9999, but what we
Right.
proposed last week was
Right.
15% as.
Mhm.
So we've already kind of made that leap in a way.
I think we lost the thread of why we did that 20% in the first band.
Right. It
It
was
was
smaller.
It was artificially inflated just to make sure that a small house, a small lot could have.
Yeah, they didn't have
a
to sell the
reasonable-
place and move out of town as
Right,
anymore.
you could put a reasonable. So we kind of juiced that up artificially.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think everything we're saying works except for that band where do we want to have a special thing where it doesn't go linear, but
Yeah.
like I said, we had already agreed in theory to reduce it, but I think we lost track of why we had originally done that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you dropped 15 to 14, and you dropped 20 to 15, and then applied the sawtooth principle of a cap, then your 9,999 square foot lot would actually cap out at 1,400 square feet, which is because that's where the level above it bottoms out. So that new ceiling would be a 600 square feet.
So, Jackie, you've mentioned, not to lose sight of why we did that first, the small lot. And so I think like maybe those small lots are exceptional. And we do something that's not quite in sync with the rest of it, because that would mean we're acknowledging that there's something about those small lots that we don't want to penalize people. It gets back to what I guess you were all talking about 2 years ago. You have another kid or,
Right.
that there's something special about those like 541 lots.
And I will say, I say all of this as a person who lives in a house that's smaller than 1,400 square feet with my husband and my child and my 2 dogs and a home office and a spare bedroom and hockey bags abound, and we're fine. So
Thought you were gonna say
There's-
where the dogs had to go.
No, oh, well, she is 15. So in my mind, when I go 1,400 square foot house. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not finding, a personal living problem. It doesn't suit everybody, and I only have one child. But I think it's that conversation around what people feel like they need.
I also, where, you should actually look at where are all these small lots? I thought they were all clustered along the shore.
No,
Right, and that is part of your point, is are they actually
Sure.
family affordable lots?
You think they're all-
Not up anymore.
Can we see that on a map?
Yeah, I've lost on that this year. So.
Would GIS do that for us?
Sophisticated.
No, I have the map that was in previous reports.
Which it should be
So I can't.
pretty much the same.
took all the art paper and then the reports from last time.
It is I mean, there are certainly, I'm just looking at the Excel spreadsheet of them and looking at addresses. And there are certainly some clusters, Beach Plum Lane, Bayberry Lane, Steel Road, or Beach Plum, or Steel, Pierce, Huckleberry, Campground,
Where did I get that map that I had?
Marion's, Guile, Bay Road.
Yeah, my memory was those feeder streets to the bay. A lot of them had a lot of them. That
Mhm.
was,
Definitely.
Yeah, I can't get it. But I think most of them are in that area. I mean, some sprinkled around, but the majority of them are on those neighborhoods on the bay side.
Right. Cool.
Right, and those are sort of historically the small cottages. Small,
Yeah, because they came from like Town Beach and stuff. They're coming from the campground. They're coming from the Methodist camps that were set up initially, sort of like.
I just want to say, so I just like from a more general standpoint. I think it's important that how we do this, the numbers that we come out as the maps. Are numbers that then the planning board can basically accept as these are gonna be, everyone's gonna come in with the max. But. We're gonna accept that.
Yeah.
And we don't have to have the debate about the. Under but too big, and you need to focus on the rest of it, so it's even something that is at the max and there's something that's not right. Just something that. Then the board doesn't have to go with the debate about the size and the square footage. They're entitled to that, that's not up for debate, how do we do the rest of it? Take the curse off of it with. Architecture, landscaping, moving the windows around, whatever it's gonna be. So wherever we end up with the thing, I think that's just important for how to. Operationalize the bylaw. And that's what we keep getting hung up on.
Yep.
Worrying about the size.
that's what we're trying to achieve.
Right, I just want to say, just wherever the numbers are, just kind of like, we're good, even if everyone maxed out. At their FAR, like, we're not gonna
We can
worry about
settle
that, it's like, this is a number. That we can live with. Houses this size we can live with,
And that's the beauty of the FAR,
right,
is that it does make it exactly proportional to the lot in some way that is equitable. That everyone with the same size lot gets the same size house.
so just to recap, and I want to be careful of time. We have Tom's proposal gets us to gets to the issue of the sawtooth and inequities from the top of one range to the bottom of another. So Tom's sort of max. And the notion that we would keep these bands, although we'd be deleting the band of 50,000, okay? And we're looking for the max, we're looking for the FAR. And I think what I'm hearing is that it seems like at the 40 and 30. I don't know, I without seeing the numbers, it's hard for me. We need to just come down to percentages. Yeah, right now.
These maroon ones with the 10,000s.
Yep.
So. Near the
Yeah,
water.
like they're
random-
sprinkled occasionally.
There's a one-offs, a whole bunch here,
Mhm.
on top of water. That one is The standalone.
Yeah.
What street is that? Oh, no,
Mary, I think that makes sense.
that's all.
So I know, but
That's all.
I'm just trying to figure out how we,
So I'm gonna go back through so that I can put it into practice. The lot size bands are gonna stay, other than the plus 50,000 becomes, unnecessary. Townwide cap at 4,800 square feet. We're going to drop band A to 15% and band B to 14%. And where the sawtooth difference happens, what makes sense in my brain is we're going to round down to create a cap on each band based on the ceiling or the floor of the band above it.
floor of the previous band.
The ceiling of one band should never exceed the floor of the next band up.
Mhm.
So if, for example, we're 10,000 square feet even at 14%, you get 1,400 is your maximum size. So that means at 999, in 1,400 is the maximum size.
Yes.
And then the way this shows on the last, we take out the 50,000 band. So the highest from there is the 40 to 49,999 band. But we have to state that 4,800 is the maximum, which is to say anything above 40,000 square feet is, so you're taking, instead of 50,000 plus, you're going 40,000 plus, you don't need to say 49,999.
With a max, overall max of 48, which you can actually put in a separate line at the top of the table.
Paul, do you want to pull the Zoom back up so we can see if Tom has anything else to say?
Tom, hi, did we miss you?
Hello? Yeah, no, I'm still here.
You,
I think you could easily leave in the column of the max and set the max. Of course, at the top end, it's going to be the 4,800, but at the other ranges, it's going to be, as you say, the floor of the one above it, and then it becomes the lesser of the FAR
Yes.
or the max.
yeah,
Fairly simple.
right.
Nice catch on that, Tom. It's a good idea.
And I think for,
Work that out.
I think for people looking at it, knowing the number of the max as opposed to percentage of the FAR, I mean.
Yeah.
We've got it in our head, but for the average person,
That's what's gonna be important.
important.
I think it's easy to think too.
Yeah.
So
So if, Jackie, do you feel like you have enough to sort of recreate a chart?
Yeah.
And then obviously, we're gonna have to circulate that for final comment.
Mhm.
Before we go out, and we can talk about,
Do it.
so both inclusionary.
We've gone from having this sawtooth going up and then you're screwed, going up, then you're screwed. So now we're going up and then we're flat. Like
Right,
the same thing as the guy,
Right.
I'm a little bit bigger, then you go up. So now we've ramped.
you
it
have some
instead of-
high points, but no suffering in between.
There's no sawtooth, we just have a ramp
Yeah.
and a flat spot.
Yep.
Okay, that's great.
All right,
Thank you,
That was
Tom.
good.
Thank you, Tom.
you're
No.
gonna put
No.
the,
Okay.
Tom gets a gold star for today.
Yeah.
okay. All right, what do you
Pass me a
wanna do
cookie.
next, Paul? We've got 50 minutes, so what do we wanna do next?
Let's talk about the zoning enforcement.
The what?
Zoning enforcement.
Zoning enforcement, okay.
Oh, what's the pushback on that one?
I had town council review it and I've been talking through and thinking about it, and just some of the issues that got brought up was that if we appoint additional zoning enforcement officers and don't create any sort of hierarchy, then it's gonna get confusing, because you're gonna have people are gonna shop, there's a potential people are gonna shop around for whoever they can get on the phone and get the answer they want. And then if there's not one person in charge of making a final call, and then,
Fall back on whatever day she's off.
right. And then if we're gonna do this, we would also need to be specific in the bylaw about who's doing what. So building commissioner handles specifically these types of things. Somebody else, and then it's just I could see it was gonna start to complicate the bylaw and just get ultra specific. So what I did was, oh, thank you. What I did was I broke the bylaw into administration and enforcement. And I left the enforcement alone. So the enforcement stays with the building official. But in the administration piece, I went back to, we create the zoning administrator role, which could be filled by the appropriate person on staff.
Appointed by town manager.
So we have to go back to do this, we have to get back into the loop of what's allowed under the state statute. So under MGL 40, section 13, a zoning board can appoint a zoning administrator. It says with basically the approval and endorsement of the select board. So we still have, ZBA can't just go and appoint whoever, there's a check. So we create the zoning administrator position. They don't get involved with the enforcement, but they can then, the ZBA can delegate the things they're authorized to delegate, but really what I've itemized there, these are the things that are already in the bylaw that are delegated to a planning board designee, unnamed designee, essentially me, but so we would just get those things under the zoning administrator umbrella. And then the fourth one on the next page is the zoning administrator would also be empowered to do the zoning determination, make the zoning determinations in the regulatory sphere. So someone applies for a building permit, they could do the zoning letter that directs them. You gotta go to planning, zoning, XYZ, which is the in-office piece that is really closer to what Jackie and I do and not as much as the building commissioner. And so that gets to the workload and the workload balance, which was one of the things I wanted to resolve. So I'm just resolving it on the administrative end, not necessarily enforcement end in the bylaw. In reality, we could still continue to do what's happening with enforcement is that anybody upstairs, building commissioner with the enforcement, do the footwork on it, whatever, just to help. It's just that at the end of the day, that person, only the building commissioner can sign the letter, issue do it. So it's just like the more I thought, I'm trying to simplify it. There's also a couple of things that I had in there that Carolyn Murray brought up that we actually don't have the capacity to do unless we change the town charter. So it got into there's so
Do that.
That should be easy.
So I guess to summarize, I'm trying to simplify it. I still think that I achieve some balance of the workload issue I was trying to get to. It does clean up the designee issue, which is unclear. We're still in the enforcement section. I'm still proposing to keep the language. It doesn't get into redelegating, but it's the language about laying out specifically what the process is. Order of operation. So that I think is still worth having. So it's clear to everybody, like this is the process for when we issue fines and so forth. So we'll keep that, but it still all stays with the building.
But in terms of, I think one of the issues we're trying to get to though was with the potentially long list of enforcement issues. Someone still needs to go out and look at it and see if there is an issue. And if so, what to do about it. Is this solving much of that?
Yeah, so run through an example like the new fence room, so the assignments. I think we thought what Kevin was saying as well, that now that we're adding these new rules, we're not expecting the building commissioner to go out and measure every time somebody complains about, the sign's too big or the fence is too close. Would your administrator still be able to do that and then just come back and report?
Right, so that's essentially what happens now. So I would say we were keeping the status quo. What I originally thought was we could have someone empowered to go across the finish line with all these things, but I just think for the reasons I stated earlier, it just gets more confusing with how to break it up in the bylaw. So I guess it's two things. At some point, not this year, but at some point in the near future, I anticipate we would get an additional local building inspector, just given the other workload demands and inspections, short-term rentals, and all that. So then we would have two building officials who could share the workload of the actual enforcement. But along with that would be the status quo, as I mentioned now, is that, Jackie and I can still go out and do all the footwork. It's just we can't legally issue that letter. We can't sign that. So it's just
But
almost
you
like
can
it's
go out and measure the fence, say, yep, that's dry.
right. And where sometimes that gets into issue where it's like, I might go out, I'm doing all the footwork and I'm thinking, we got to do enforcement. But if the building official disagrees for whatever reason or says we're not doing it, then I can't send the letter.
No,
So,
all you can do is.
So it
report
doesn't-
Findings.
Can
but I
they
think that is, no,
determine an enforcement though? They couldn't.
well, unless we start getting into changing the charter, empowering.
But like the Conservation Commission issues enforcement letters, do they not? They always seem to be finding people and stuff.
They do.
They do. And under what authority? That's just a whole different
Yeah.
thing. Okay. But like, for example, we talked.
What I propose though is that the fines would be issued through the zoning board. Because it's a zoning violation.
Okay,
So that if it gets to the point where warnings, reasonable time to rectify it, now we got a fine. That would go to the zoning board so that there's a public hearing about it and everyone has a say. And then the board,
The ZBA, not the planning,
the
right?
ZBA.
So you would then file a case with the ZBA saying, I want these fines. And they can either show up or not show up to defend themselves.
Right, and that's modeled after the Conservation Commission. So basically, the agent doesn't. It goes to the commission. The commission determines, yes, it's time to issue a fine, and then
Instead
there's
of
more of a
being
public
out,
process to it. Which, it's a balance of like having it administratively, where it's just like the building official just makes the determination, like, we've been patient enough. I'm going to do a fine. It does add in, like, now we're going to go to the zoning board, but to me, I just feel like. We're gonna issue a fine, it's getting serious, like, let's have a board.
Yeah, it's due process. So
Due process.
You're allowing someone to face the accusation and saying, you have an opportunity to your lawyer. If you don't think this applies to you, let us know why. Otherwise.
Because issuing fines is a pain in the butt too,
Right.
because then it gets into, you go to court, I mean, it's just the practicality of. You're taking people to court, you're trying to get it, the court doesn't, they got, real bad guys to deal with. Never mind, someone who's not, it's just, it always bounces around, takes forever. So it's like. The last thing you want to do is really have to get to that situation. Sometimes you do, but.
well, we were talking that if the sign, especially we'll get to signage if, feather signs are banned and various things, I was saying to Paul, well, what if, we should right after town meeting, notify everybody up on Route 6, here's new rules, they should know that. So I could see in that notification, that might be something that's done administratively, whether it's Paul or Jackie. And some follow-up conversations might happen. Businesses who aren't compliant, they get a visit. But then you get to the point where you have to say, okay, it's a violation. Then you bring in the building commission to sign off on the violation. And I mean, if in some instances, like feather signs, if they're not allowed and they have them, it's not even a debate. I mean, your building commissioner's he can't go outside of the bylaw, correct?
No.
So when Paul was describing this to me, I was sort of leaning on him in terms of what internally makes most sense in terms of his administration of these things.
Well, and it administrative, there's delegation for administrative matters, then that proactive outreach and education, which I think is really important, again, can stay with planning department, doesn't have to be the building commissioner.
Right, because that's not enforcement, that's just saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there anything, sorry, we finished?
No, I think that's very, it's a key piece that we just need to be sure it's part of the process.
I was gonna bring up the issue, so if somebody has outstanding fines and they just ignore, and they're building up. And now they want to apply for then a shed behind their house. So if you have any outstanding building violations or, administrative stuff, does that put a freeze on your ability to do any future development? Do we have that spelled out anywhere?
I'll check with legal. I think that we have the capacity
to do
to do
that.
that, but if it needs to be spelled out, we can put the language.
Because that might, would give, like you said, going to court when they're dealing with bigger cases and you're like, this guy won't move his fence. But on top of that, you say, you can't do anything on this lot until you're clear. You know, you can't put in your septic system.
Right, well, actually, we do, because we already have that, we already have that with the, unpaid taxes and other like
Yeah.
business registry, other fees. The treasurer's office sends that, but it sends out a list, so it should be, try to check against that, it shouldn't be issuing
And then-
permits or anything. Or
and then-
beach stickers or anything unless they have outstanding.
Okay. Then the other quick question I had, which was the appeal decision of the zoning administrator. Is there a process where they could appeal to the building inspector instead of going right to the ZBA? We'll come back to the appeal. It was 9.1.3. Yeah, there we go.
That is part of the state statute,
Okay,
the 4814.
all right.
Okay.
Because basically the zoning board, this is a little bit of a hybrid because the planning board stuff doesn't have any placeholder in the state statute, so it's still a little bit of a hybrid that I'm hoping Karen will be okay with. But essentially, the whole thing, the whole issue with the zoning administrator is it's a tool that the ZBA has to take stuff off their plate, you know, just to say, because really the ZBA could empower the administrator to do any number of things
Right.
other than they can't override the zoning board, you know, if there's a country, but they could say, you know, we don't want to deal with special permits anymore.
Okay, so it makes sense.
So that's why it's
The
all
appeal
tied
will go
into-
back to the
right.
ZBA.
Yeah.
And, yeah. All right.
All right. Any other major questions? Just conscious of time, we want to get through. Okay. Paul, what else do you want to go next?
Whichever one Jack will go.
Setbacks.
But that's the only. Oh, actually, we didn't have any changes on that.
Okay.
We were gonna keep well, I guess
Well, we
this may
should,
change when we talk about the campers, but for right now, we.
yeah, we can just leave that for the moment.
Okay.
Okay, so that was no change. Do you want to go to the campus? You know, we can get that issue.
The other prohibited uses. So, I'm just looking at this is what you've sent me. Just.
It's just your sign code, then prohibited uses.
Yeah, just put one up. We gotta get through.
Yeah, trailers. No, we're talking about trailers. So it's the prohibited uses. There you go. Storage trailers.
So storage trailers, I added in the red. So this would be located on residential properties. That creates a carve out for if there are a few oddball lots around that have commercial use and residential, and they need to
Right,
have something for storage.
like that Atlantic drilling
Exactly.
site is surrounded by
Yeah,
residential.
exactly. And this would, otherwise we'd have to have a special permit carve out. That just, to me, gets complicated. So I added that in. Number 3 is just really a matter of if we want to be explicit about having a date in there. And then on the fences, this came up with the workshop clarifying that the prohibition on the non-natural materials is for solid panel fences only. And again, if we wanted to have date certain, just so people don't. To me, that's just really to try to avoid, like, does that mean I have to tear down my fence? No, I'm not tearing down fences. Fence is there.
Which even if that's spelled out, someone's gonna call you
Yeah,
anyway.
so
Can I just ask,
We'll get 2 instead of 20.
can I just ask a question about I have 2 things, one on storage, but I'll mention it on this, the fence issue. So there seem to be kind of universal feedback about the notion that some of these fences are creating these blind corners, and they have, and there's not many of them, there's probably 2 or 3 of them, but they have safety issues, and so going forward, we've got that, what do you call it, the triangle, visual triangle,
Mhm.
but is there anything we should be doing because it's a public safety issue with the 2 or 3 that's out there right now? I mean, I know we've been trying to say, it's much easier to say we're not gonna change
Right.
the handful of things, but I'm just raising the safety issue. And is there any,
I think that would be in the setback.
Is
Article.
there already a state law or something else that could be applied? Something for visibility?
or is it, without overthinking it too much? Is it as simple as wherever those are identified, and I don't know how many there are in town, but whatever they might be, that the planning department work with the owners of those lots, and maybe something as simple as putting up a mirror, so that you can see the oncoming traffic. I know that's pretty effective.
well, I guess,
That in lieu of having to try to get somebody to take down 40 feet of fence and replace it.
we also have some fences that are right on the public way, so I wonder
Right.
whether there's a catch-all to say, do we say fences that are compliant with current setback rules, or, do we make that statement, because there may be some that are compliant, and
So
I'm just
right
raising-
now we're on the prohibited uses for the solid vinyl. I think there's another article here when it gets to setbacks for fences.
Let's talk about,
I think when
I feel like that's where the site triangle issue.
Site triangle.
So when we-
Okay,
Right,
so
that one. Because that one, what we put with the site angle, when we could not put an establishment date on it, say.
on the site
So
triangle,
on the storage trailers, this says in compliance with applicable setbacks, so we're not making anybody move these trailers, but they have to, so they can keep them, but they have to be setback, so if someone complained and we figured out it's a setback, at least they have to be moved back,
so
but we're not taking something away from.
So let me ask you a question, Martin's example of the 2 that are facing town green. Under this scenario, they stay in perpetuity, and we just live at them as we live at them because they grandfathered.
they are compliant with setbacks.
They're compliant when they put them in. They're still a temporary in nature type of building. So it's not like if they built the building and a shed. And then you're saying, hey, we changed our zoning laws, you gotta move that shed. That's a burden. But if someone has a piece of equipment stored on their lot, to say, well, that piece of equipment was here before we regulated it. Therefore you get to keep it. That isn't the same as a structure to me. This is a piece of equipment that's sitting there. So I would be okay with not doing that by saying, here's our rules for storage containers. You're not in compliance, and then it's up to us.
So we're not saying you have to get rid of it, but you have to be in compliance.
With the setbacks.
Well, this law says you can't have them, so.
Now this says you can have them, if you have them prior to March 18th, you can keep them, but they have to be within the setback.
What if it rusts away and they replace it, like, do they have that?
Well, that
Can they keep
was
putting
my
it in
second,
and out?
that was my second point. I wanted to know whether, when they were finally,
I,
unusual.
That's not the intention, so yeah, those ones rust out and you move them, that's it, you don't put anyone back.
But do you have the ability, for example,
track them now.
if someone's like, if you got it's grossly rusted out 5 years from now, it's a visual and probably an environmental hazard. Do you have any tools under this law to go and say, hey, you gotta move that? Or you
Well,
can
that's
eliminate that?
that comes back to the enforcement, so the neighbor is complaining about it. Or if we get to the capacity of doing proactive enforcement,
But do you even have the ability under this bylaw to enforce any change?
Well,
yeah, like if someone, so if this goes in and somebody says, my neighbor just moved in one of these pods.
Oh, that again,
Yeah,
I'm talking about the existing ones. Like the one
this
that's
is saying that if you have an existing one, you can keep it.
okay,
If
What
it
if we,
meets.
what if we put something in here saying that you'll have 24 months to become compliant for some, 5 years even? I don't know what you want to put in there, but I just have this feeling that just because you got through this loophole, it's not a structure. They didn't build anything. They just dropped off a piece of equipment.
Well, that's the part I think I gotta check on a legal question there, whether they would be considered structures.
Tom?
Yeah, another question, well, two quick questions. One is why March 18th, 2026?
That's the date of the planning board public hearing.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's where the
But
dart
the other
man-
is, but it's not the date that it gets passed, right, which is town meeting.
Well, the date that these become in effect is retroactive to the date of the first legal notice running in the newspaper, which is gonna be February
Okay.
something. But, so I
Got
just,
it.
March 18th at least is easier to explain that was the date of the hearing, not when it
Okay.
ran in the newspaper.
The other question though is, probably one for legal counsel. In storage trailers on that number 3, in compliance with applicable setbacks located on site prior to March 18th, could that be interpreted as the applicable setbacks in place at the time prior to March 18th? So just a little caution there with legal as to how that gets worded. I think what you want to say there is whatever the current setbacks are. And again, I don't know how to legally say that.
So let me ask you. Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say, could you also add the issue that Mary's worried about, and we're all actually worried about from an environmental perspective, is the storage trailers that start to decompose. Can you say something about storage trailers in compliance with applicable setbacks and in good condition?
I think that's gonna be really hard. I think the first thing is, I need to check to see. Are these considered in some way structures which would, if the answer is yes, then do they have this legacy protection
Right.
as if it were a shed or some other building? If the answer is yes, then I guess there's two paths. If the answer is no, then I think it's easier to say we could put the language in there to say we can proactively say you gotta get rid of them by a date certain.
yeah. I think that if you consulted with the fire department, they're trained on how to deal with structure fires. They're trained on how to deal with fires that are inside of a metal container. Say, this is a.
I think the other thing, which this is just probably a very small set, these, like, there was a window of time where we were basically didn't have any of this. And to legitimize them, we were permitting them as a shed, because we didn't have a definition of a shed, so that would probably also complicate things. But if that is the case, it's probably a handful of them. But
So you could change this instead by saying that any storage trailer that was permitted as a shed prior to this date, this new rule doesn't apply.
right,
So at least then you could say, hey, I got a permit and you told me it was okay. I went and bought it and I put it on my lot. And now you're telling me I can't.
So the unpermitted ones, the people who just did it
Right.
would get
So I'm saying the person has a case because they said, I tried to do everything right and the building inspector 5 years ago said I could do it. As opposed to, I just dropped 3 of them off of my lot.
Yeah,
so I will check with legal on that, and then if we can, I can put that type of language in there.
I would think that's a little bit more restrictive until we get some, because no one's pushing back saying, I want my storage containers just yet. And they'll have a chance at public meetings.
So,
I like that carve out much better, whoever's idea that was about, if I have a permit, I get to keep it.
yep. And they don't get to replace them. Can you make sure we ask them that they don't have a permanent legacy? right, Paul?
Right.
And, there were two things that came up in our discussion. Joint meeting. One was. Should there be a limit to the number of all of these things? In other words, can you have 3 storage trailers? Can you have, or 3 trailers? So that was one question that came up, is that should there be a limit on the, 4 recreational vehicles and 2 trailers? They're all within the setbacks, but it starts to look like a boatyard.
Well, we're already restricting them on residential lots. So if you're gonna put a number, that means we're going up to like Holmes Road, for instance. If someone has 2 of them, and somebody else has 4 of them, are we gonna get in? Does that bother anybody?
No, I'm just talking about residential properties.
We're not allowing them at all going.
We're not allowing them all,
Not storage trailers, but the trailers.
Oh, we're not,
Oh,
we're not on trailers yet, we're not on trailers yet.
There is on the storage trailer. You could conceivably have one if you're a service trade operating as a home occupation. Although it would have to be screened.
but she's asking, is there a limit? Did you say?
No, there's not. So the way the place to, it's just not, it doesn't, I will say, that section doesn't say you can have a storage trailer, but if someone said, I'm registering my business and I would say, okay, you're gonna store your equipment, you could have that trailer, you gotta screen it with fence or screen. To address that issue would probably be in this section 213, which is the use of service trades, to put language in there that says one of these one trailer,
Up to 1.
up to 1 trailer is permitted, provided it's, so that would be,
If I live next door to a landscaper, and he has 1, I'm okay with it versus 4.
right, and so when the way this comes up is when you're registering a business. You fill out paperwork, and if there's a checklist, if it's a home occupation. Or service trade, it goes through all this stuff, non-compliance and the signage and all this stuff, so that would be one of the things, that if we add that language in. Are you going to have a storage trailer for equipment? Yes, how many? If they put 2, goes back, you can have 1. So that would be,
So once we touch this topic, now there's all different sizes. There's like a 12-foot, 24, 36-foot. Do we want to even talk about that?
I think it's kind of late in the game, just go
Yeah,
down to
setbacks,
next year.
setbacks would-
next year. Okay,
I have just one thing. So this is the same section that talks about the formula businesses and then the fences, right? And at the summary, there's a paragraph about storage trailers and there's one about the formula businesses. There's nothing about the fences, and I'm
yeah, that's all draft, that's
Okay, just
placeholder
thinking-
stuff, yeah.
that should be in there.
Yeah, that'll have to be done on the final version.
Okay.
okay,
All right.
so we've given Paul a number of things to check with legal. Mostly in terms of the existing ones, do we have any rights to? Well, I mean, if we say if you were permitted prior to March 18th, you've got it, and then that leaves you with an enforcement issue of if there's half dozen of these that aren't, at least gives you the tool. I mean,
You never got a permit and you just dropped it off.
you just dropped it off.
You got 12 months to.
Okay,
Do you want to put the language into this uses section that limits it to 1 storage trailer?
Into which section? Oh,
well, that's I mean,
I guess it's, do you want language that limits it to 1 storage trailer for a trade?
for trade.
to go into the trade. The problem I have right now is I don't know. I mean, is the town, I mean, this is more of a legacy thing, right? These commercial properties that are in these residential neighborhoods, the likelihood that,
No, that's one scenario, but it's just anybody, anywhere. Who wants to start operating a trade could, in theory, want one of these trailers in their yard.
Do we want to limit it to 1 or can they put 4?
Yeah.
That's what I was
no,
saying.
I would say 1.
So I think we could do that.
Right,
Yeah.
because we have a trade process now.
I would just insert that language into the other, we haven't talked about editing that section, but that's where it would go.
Okay,
So I'll do that.
I think that's fair.
okay.
It's related to this whole thing, so it makes sense. Okay.
Oh, should we circle back to the fencing issue? I just want to bring Jamie's concerns in.
Yeah.
Are we in the right section? So after the meeting, Jamie texted me and spoke directly to Paul. And maybe we just need to talk this out. She was getting very, very concerned about trailers, the RV kind of trailers with the setback, because she was, you could correct me, she said, someone might have to stack a couple cars in a trailer, and, I'm really concerned about RVs and setbacks. I've tried to drive around a little bit. I haven't seen any RV that is not at least the 12 feet back. So I'm not sure if I'm just not sure how much of an issue this is. And quite frankly, you could always put your RV up front in your car.
I'm concerned about the drive setback from the road or setback from the sides. I would say that. Is she concerned about the front
The
setback?
front. She just had,
Email you the camera.
she just had a concern that, she started thinking about people who might have a couple cars and an RV in their driveway, and we gotta start eliminating the RVs. And
Yeah.
I mean, and Paul, we had talked when this came up about whether we should. I mean, the only thing, about it is I haven't seen RVs right at the edge of the property line. And I don't know if anyone's seen those, but also you have right
Within the
There's
12
one,
feet.
there's one close to you.
Yeah.
within
what
12 feet.
The one I'm thinking of.
And would it be a problematic for that person to move that up? Or is there just not enough?
I can't see
Is that
it.
on Massasoit? It's like a nice new looking one, right? That sometimes.
It's on Herringbrook,
Yeah, I've seen it. And it's,
and there's one on Old Orchard from time to time,
gosh,
for
good.
long periods of time also.
But that one's setback. I go by that one all the time.
12 feet's not a
No,
lot.
no, not always.
Really?
Do you mean from the road or
From
from
the
the
road.
interior?
Road,
Yeah. Like you have your driveway and.
I mean, I think,
Well, I guess the issue is the street setback, and
The
if you
street setback.
are parking the RV
Right.
in your driveway.
and it's not 12 feet from the road.
Jane was trying to put, like, if you got that, but you got
A boat.
a boat, or you got two Suburbans that you just park end to end, or some other, two large cars and you're parked in the driveway, is that? We don't have anything against that
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
in the drive, and, so then you say, well, it's in my driveway or it's in the front of my house, it's gotta be 12 feet, I don't have 12 feet. I could screen it with a fence, but now the fence the fence on the street has to be 6 feet back, and now I'm, she was
Right.
kind of trying to play out how this
Yeah.
gets come
Well,
out.
is there what's that word I'm looking for? Is there an appeal process for this if it's a real hardship?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is there, could we put something in there that could be, there's a standard, but
We have that,
you have that.
we already have.
So
that.
is that,
As long as we have that. I think we're setting the expectation of what it should look like. And if somebody, like the one I'm thinking of that's on Herringbrook, where I think,
Well, I guess, sorry to interrupt, but the other way to think about this is we could keep it the way it is, move it from select board to zoning board, and it just basically says right now,
right,
you have to get a permit. It doesn't talk about setbacks or anything, so it's open-ended, but you still have to go to get a permit. And that's where you have this discussion about you're not mandating a setback. That's where each individual case can be figured out on its own. So where someone's got a setback issue, so it doesn't adhere to it. It has to be 12 feet. I don't have 12 feet. It's just every case is its own merit. So, and that lets the board have some latitude to figure out what the best solution is for any given case, without tying into a specific setback, which then, is that's what Jamie's bringing up, is like, then you get caught up in this, I don't have 12 feet, and the fence, I don't have 6 feet. So I guess that's just another option, and also the solution may be you're going to get the permit, but it doesn't obligate the board to have to put a condition on it. And if you're going to the permit, we would still notify, you'd still keep the process where you're notifying the abutters. So you play by the rules, you come in, you get the permit, the abutters are notified. If nobody shows up and no one has a problem and there's no safety issue identified, the board just may say, park it where you want. There's not, or they could say, you gotta screen it, you gotta do something, or they could, they're not obligated to put a condition unless it's warranted.
But they could put it.
But they could, if they've identified an issue, or a neighbor complains about it, okay, well, let's resolve this issue, but, so. It's a way to, again, I'm just always looking to simplify this, and. This will be one. That will get. No one's gonna talk about the site coverage, if they are. They're gonna talk about this one, they're gonna talk about the fences,
Yeah,
and.
so if we set the expected setback the way we have it, but there is an option, and so they have to get a permit. They come to get the permit, they say, I can't do the 12 feet. And so they go to the zoning board to get an exception. Then that means most of them are gonna be 12 feet, because we sort of set the expectation, they're gonna be 12 feet.
What I'm saying is, don't put the setback in there, because that's going to create the discussion point. Now everybody has to have a setback, and you're telling me I can't have a camper and this and that. Just keep it, you still have to get the permit.
Okay,
And someone may come in and say, I got plenty of room.
And abutters have an opportunity to comment.
Right, but we don't have a setback. I know I'm contradicting what I originally said, because I did think originally we should have some process around it, but I'm just trying to think about how this is gonna play out, but it still gives the board leeway to say, you gotta have some setback, but if it's warranted, but it lets them figure out what the right setback is for any given situation.
but I'm coming at from the point of view of the board without setting any expectation for setback. Each one is gonna be one off. And they're, so that the other, it's sort of like the size thing. They just approve them all because they don't have any
Right.
judgment, written down judgment. Whereas if we say we have an expected setback, but there's a provision for it without a special permit, kind of big deal. There's a way to go to the zoning board to get approval
For variance.
your permit for variance. That gives the zoning board something to go on. Otherwise, it's
Well,
everyone's
it's trying to address the concern Jamie brought up, this,
right,
Yeah, so
which another way to do that is if you don't have the street setback.
right.
And then someone has got it parked in the driveway, that's where you're supposed to park. Unless it's a site issue.
Right.
Which we would just do enforcement.
So you keep all the setbacks except for the street setback.
I mean, that's another compromise we could do. I think
Because
that was
that's how
what
we're
she was bringing up is,
Well, we are basically saying people aren't permitting them, but
Right,
they're supposed to be permitting them. So you're always supposed to be permitting, that's been an enforcement issue, and then it's gone to the select board. So now we want it to go to the planning board, you've got to get a permit. I mean, I actually think Carolyn's argument, again, select board can overrule us on this. I mean, Jamie may have an impassioned, view on this, but we could just say there is an opportunity for the handful of those folks to seek a variance.
I thought we were trying to clean up the idea that right now, you're supposed to get a permit. The vast majority of people do not do it. So the idea was, let's stop requiring permits and just set the rules for what you need to do, which is the setbacks. And if you can't meet a setback, then you should be able to go to zoning for a variance. because someone complained and said, that's out on the street, you're not allowed to do that. But as long as you have an outlet for them to go and say, you know what, I have a situation with my lot, my driveway, or I own a townhouse, for instance, because we're gonna have a lot of townhouses in Northeast Tim with people, you know, this issue is going to get bigger versus smaller. We're gonna have the Floridians driving up and parking in their townhouse for 10 weeks. And we're gonna say, oh, none of those apply, they're all too close to the street. So I think I'd rather see them us not require a permit, put in all the setbacks, but have an outlet for, I have a special situation, I can't abide by the setback, so I'm gonna get a variance. Wouldn't that work?
And that's what we have. It's so,
That's what we have now.
that's
Oh,
that's the
theoretically-
proposal.
That's the proposal, or is that what we have
That's the
now?
current proposal that we talked, that's what we presented the other
That's
day.
correct.
Yeah,
If
so
you
why
can't
was,
meet the setback, you go to the zoning.
was Jamie not satisfied with that, or did she, was she?
Well, I think it's the street setback, just in this feeling of like, we don't currently say that your F-350 has to be 12 feet down your driveway.
I see.
No, a box truck, you could be taking a box truck home from work every day.
Right,
Yeah, every-
those don't
yeah.
have to be 12 feet down your driveway.
Yeah,
Okay, so
So not,
I
so it's really the street setback
So
about,
the idea is we're putting a setback on a vehicle for the first time. There's never any setback, street setbacks for vehicles.
right,
But I'm not, if you want to remove it and just not have a minimum street setback,
except for the sightlines.
except for the sideline, yeah.
well, I think to Paul's point, goes back if we take it out, but we require them to be permitted and abutters are notified and someone has to look at it. Who has the authority then to say it doesn't work if there's a safety issue or?
The sightline issue is mostly going to be mitigated by, you're not allowed to have a driveway that close to a corner. I'm not sure what the exact numbers are, but I know if you're laying out your lot, you can't put a driveway, 10 or 15 feet from the actual corner. The driveway has to be right, so that sort of, it's hard to see where where any vehicle parked at the end of their driveway actually impedes anything other than the sidewalk. So
I think removing the 12-foot street setback
the easiest way to go.
Is-
for now.
Is a good idea.
a compromise.
I'm okay.
But requiring a permit,
No,
No problem.
no permit. So it's,
well, I guess the logical
Can I
place
jump
for
in for-
someone to park
Tom,
this is in a driveway, so.
Tom, yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with the reducing or eliminating the street setback, because when you think about, I was looking at some numbers, when you think about the length of an RV, which is 20 to 30 or even more feet, plus 12 to setback, you need a driveway that's 40 feet long. How many people have that? So there's an issue. And I'd be more concerned if I was the abutter about being right up against the property line. That's more of a concern. But I have a question. I think we discussed this before, but I don't remember the answer. Does this apply to any storage or just long-term storage of campers? And I'm thinking that the biggest issue, perhaps that Jamie might have, is if someone comes in, a friend comes in for a month and parks a camper there. Yeah, how do you deal with that? Does this apply to all storage or just long-term?
It's unspecified.
it's not specified.
Yeah, the last thing we want to do is go kick grandpa out of the driveway. Because here to see the grandkids.
Yeah. Right. Because that's going to be the harder issue is if somebody's coming in for 2 or 4 weeks, how do you manage the setbacks? But if somebody's going to plop a trailer there, an RV there for a very long period of time, now they should plan it out and they should be respectful of their neighbors.
I think we did talk through long-term storage, but then what's long-term? And then if someone's moving it, they go away every weekend and come back and it's like, okay, not consistently,
I think we start to think of these campers as vehicles,
Right.
And the only issue I see with that is that someone parks their RV right within 12 feet of the street, that's fine.
What if you drive?
And then it never it's there for 2 years, 3 years. They've parked it in front, knowing at some point they have to have it towed out and it's the easier place to put it. But it sits there and then you go by, 6 months later, the tires are deflated. and that kind of thing.
We have other issues with vehicle has to remain registered.
Yeah, so you probably catch them on that if some, again, enforcement issue, but, yeah, I think
Yeah.
as Tom says, it's the side setback is more the issue than the front.
What if my driveway is within 12 feet of my sideline?
And we'd come to the ZBA and say, my driveway is within 12 feet of the sideline, may I please have permission to park my RV there?
And if my neighbor doesn't complain, then we're good.
They could,
Oh, well, they could,
they
yeah,
could
then-
put a condition that you have a fence or something.
yeah.
Yeah, put up a screen.
I was talking about the safety triangle at the intersections.
Right.
That's what I'm talking
And
about.
that'll still apply at I mean, we can, like, removing the street setback does not remove the site triangle that applies to everything.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, good.
Right, and it is, I think, easier to enforce, to be able to help someone see this whole triangle of your property. No
Yeah.
sheds, no trailers, no RVs, no fences,
No box trucks or.
right, and it's a very clear and obvious safety issue. Versus today it's in my driveway at 8 feet, tomorrow next week said it's 6 feet, and next week it's 10 feet, depending on when I'm going camping. And
Yeah, I agree. You could have an angry neighbor who's just going to go and start calling us up and saying, hey, that trailer is only 9 feet off the curb instead
Yeah.
of 12. I know, we don't.
Yeah,
most
but then
people-
it's the,
we don't have
where do you
any-
want me to park it? I have it parked in my driveway. Where am I gonna
well,
park it?
I'm not sure we could resolve this. I mean, one of the things I said to Paul is we bought a trailer a few years ago, a little tiny travel trailer. And we're going into these campgrounds and people have basically homes.
Buses.
I mean, they have giant, I mean, we look like, nothing and they're like, and multiple bedrooms and,
Yeah, so-
65-inch TVs and the lazy boy climbers. And I'm like, why did you leave your house and you sat in?
I don't have the camper one on here, but what I added in was,
I found,
oh, you did, okay, I just added in the explicit note of this does not apply to boats.
Right.
Yeah, I saw that.
So,
Otherwise you wouldn't get out of town meeting.
with that 2 minutes left,
So we're gonna take out.
we're gonna take out the setback, we're gonna move it
Just the
to
front setback, just
the
the.
front the
Yeah.
front setback that goes back to, it goes to the planning board. And they don't require a permit?
you don't require a permit, but if you can't meet the setbacks, then you come and apply for a special permit.
The side setback.
Side setbacks.
You apply for a variance. Isn't a special permit a whole different?
It's a special permit.
But is that gonna cost $10,000?
No. Okay, do we get?
We'll have to come up with a strict thing.
I'm doing a check because we have 2 minutes left. Paul, I don't think there was any changes on the definitions that we talked about, but the one thing we haven't talked about is sign code. You wanna go
Okay,
back?
time code is, again, trying to simplify, and really, I was a little surprised that there wasn't any, aversion to possibly prohibiting the feather signs. So if that's something we want to move forward with, to me, that reduces the amount of things we need to do to the sign code, because I had a lot of changes, but it was really, a lot of it was because of trying to figure out a way to slide a spot for these feather signs and temporary signs, and then reorganizing and recategorizing. So we're just simply going to prohibit them. I don't think we need to do really much else in the sign code. So what I did, so this is what I would propose to reduce this to, is we would keep the proposal on the short-term rental signs that they can only be up May to October. That can slide right into the existing section we already have for those real estate signs. The window signs, this is already language in the bylaw. It's just that it's in a weird section that it's easily overlooked. So it's just nothing new, it's just putting it in there. And then this is where on number 3, it's just the issue of the dancing.
The oscillator?
Technically, someone could say that's not electronic, it's hooked up to a motor that's blowing air into it, so it's not oscillating and not rotating, it's not electric, so added mechanically controlled, just to potential loophole.
I suggested wackily waving.
Wow, we could have a little more alliteration in there. So number 3 is
Do that
just
graphically in the report.
close that loophole, and then 7 is the billboards, and 8 would be just prohibit these, and then you kind of dispense.
So we're not even gonna do the one for.
If it just kind of, if no one's averse to just prohibiting them, then we don't have to have all
I
these
thought we,
things
I
as
thought there
about.
was some discussion around, like someone mentioned that Willie's has 5 or 6 of them, and that we talked about, we've only got, the vendors only have 10 weeks to really make their business here, and that I thought we were gonna allow people to put up.
That was our
Oh, I know,
position.
I know.
Everybody in the room said no.
Everyone else said
Everyone else said get rid of, I mean, that was my surprise.
So I did put
Okay.
commercial, so if someone was having a nonprofit or whatever they want to have if they're having an event or something, you could still put one out for the event, but
like music tonight type of thing.
for a non-commercial thing.
Windmill, we
Is that, like
Yeah,
that,
no, I'm happy with that.
is there a definition for commercial versus non-commercial somewhere?
Yeah, well, this would say if the convenience store wants to put banner for gold ice, they couldn't do that. That's a
Right.
commercial sign.
But
If
if
someone's
they
putting
have-
out a banner,
Yard sale.
benefit concert tonight or something, that's not a commercial sign.
Yeah, we're gonna
do that for an
Part of what
event.
we talked about is, hey, the convenience store that wants to be able to say ice cold beer. There's nothing that would prohibit them on their permanent sign, hanging 2 little hooks and making a wooden sign that says ice cold beer here.
Right.
And hanging it there. So the same
Or having a
information
flag, a regular traditional flag,
attached to the,
those are,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's still
Hey,
ways
Paul?
to communicate what they
Yes,
need for
Tom.
their businesses without losing the character.
Tom?
On those blow up wacky things, I could argue that they're not mechanically controlled. They're not controlled at all. They're just totally random. But they do have a blower on them. So a question there would be just double checking with the proper definition of those things.
I thought they were a tube sign or something like that.
is that what they're called?
And would they be
Okay.
prohibited?
Don't they,
Maybe,
don't they
yeah.
have a motor that
Now-
goes
Blow up
there? That's
tube.
how they-
And they get they're electronically, because they get plugged in.
Yeah, but
If you unplug them, they don't work.
they do get plugged in, so maybe it's electronic. Yeah, but they're not controlled at all. They're just totally random.
Well, I think we're kind of covering all bases, just in case.
I'm being technical.
Yeah, all right. Have we?
Don't want a lawyer scooting in there and saying,
So so from a time perspective, Paul and I talked about the fact that we're gonna start writing. And we need to get a report. What was the date that we gave ourselves?
Tube signs.
Before February 18th. We need to,
Wait a minute.
if we're gonna issue a report by February 18th, one of the things, we're gonna have to actually back that up, because I would like everyone to have at least a final look at all the language that we've talked about today. There may be a call in our future just to nail the chart on the,
I can have it to you Thursday.
Thursday. And then review the report, review the final language, and we've got to do that all by before February 18th. So I gotta do some writing, you guys gotta do some
I
writing.
think February 20th. We're trying to say if we could have the report out roughly a month before the planning board public hearing with March 18th.
Do you want to schedule, at least put a placeholder and schedule a Zoom call so people can get final comments before things get out published? Well, I mean, things could be circulated and people could be commenting, but I just feel it's gonna be more efficient if we're all,
We all need to hear the same thing at the same time.
yeah.
So what are you proposing?
We're here. Do we think that, and we want to get this out then? Friday the 13th, which gives us just shy of 2 weeks. To get all of, you've got legal questions, you've got some number crunching. You got a bunch of things and get some writing. So that gives us 1, 2, 3. 10 days. Is that too ambitious? I mean, you got, the workload is, I got a little piece of this, but the workload is on you guys, so I'd rather you drive the bus here. Or we can flip over to the next week.
Which week was that you were talking about the?
I was looking
13th?
at Friday the 13th, or, and to give us a little more wiggle room. What I'm hearing Paul saying is we should be ready to go public with these warrant articles and the accompanying report by the 20th, by Friday the 20th.
Yeah, I'm gonna be away for a few days that week, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. 13th,
Okay.
I might be back by the 13th, but I'm
Okay.
driving.
If we start going into the next week, say 2 weeks from now, Tuesday the 17th. Is that,
That is good for me.
how does everybody else look?
I'm open all day.
And
18th is no good for me, but
so the 17th, do we want to
Sure.
do, Tom, 17th, February 17th?
For call.
Do we want to do
There we go.
Zoom? Do you want to do Zoom?
February 17th, what time? I'm back home at that point, so that's fine. I just have something that evening at 6 o'clock.
We could do more usual morning slot, that would give us the
10,
afternoon
12.
to keep getting to
Do
the
more.
20.
10 to 12? And if 10 to 12 on the 17th, and do people want to do Zoom or do we want to try another sit here?
I'd like to, I think we get more when
We're done, yeah, we're here.
yeah.
All right, does that work for everybody?
Yep.
All right, February 10 to 12 on the 17th. And I'll work with Paul, but we should probably, maybe we do an internal goal that we try to circulate as much stuff on the 13th so people have the weekend to read it.
Yeah, my goal is we'll have all the final drafts
Yeah.
of the actual warrant articles
Yeah.
in the report. So people
Okay.
have time to look at it, and then we can be efficient at the other meeting.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
So it'll be town hall on the 17th at 10 a.m. to noon time.
Yep.
And Zoom will also be available.
Yes.
And Zoom will always be available, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Work for everyone? Great. Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Wanna close the
Okay,
meeting?
take care.
Oh, can I,
Hold on, Tom, we're gonna close.
oh, yeah, can I get a motion to?
Oh, yeah,
adjourn
yeah.
the meeting?
I'll second
Matt
that.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.